Lord of the Rings Online is an MMORPG that actually lives up to both the MMO and the RPG in its namesake, whilst also at the same time surviving against the undying tyranny of World of Warcraft after all of this time. And for a game that launched in 2007, I must say, it holds up really, really well, with a community that honestly deserves praise for the dedication that they have to this game. Because I was not expecting to encounter a full-blown player-run orchestra in Bree that was rickrolling everybody. But not only that, it's set in one of the most iconic fantasy universes to ever grace the face of planet Earth, the forefather of fantasy.
You shall not pass!
But going back, when I said MMO earlier, I meant the massive in that MMO, because you can quite literally walk to every corner of Middle-earth. You can also quite literally walk to Mordor. Now, don't get me wrong, it's clunky, it's archaic, and it has an incredibly robust cash shop, which I'll cover later. But it's a very charming game that absolutely everybody should step foot into at least once in their life. Especially because as far as a game world with stories and NPCs and a world that you can interact with, it does an amazing job. It does a phenomenal job. It's beautiful, it's idyllic, it's charming, it's Middle-earth in detail. And it's honestly surprising because it's one of the only MMOs that, despite having a robust endgame, the content is the world, it's the leveling, it's the quests. And that world is amazing. The world of Middle-earth and Tolkien's genius is incredibly well done. I'm not the most dedicated Lord of the Rings nerd on this planet, but I've read the Silmarillion about a decade ago, but I've read it. And the characters, those story beats, those little quests. But I'm also not going to lie, the amount of quests in the game that tell you to go talk to this person who is 5 feet away from the other person was mildly infuriating. Nonetheless, we're going to explore this amazing world, mostly from the perspective of an MMO veteran, but a LotrO newbie. So sit down, buckle up, and grab a second breakfast, because we're about to explore Lord of the Rings Online. I would like to make one quick caveat. I am playing on regular servers, not legendary servers. The legendary servers are the equivalent of WoW classic servers, but for LotrO. To summarize it, imagine Lord of the Rings Online from 2007 with all the UI, server, and quality of life improvements. But you have to subscribe to play them. And I wanted to make this video from the perspective of someone who is completely free to play, as that will be most people's first foray into the game. When it comes to character creation, I've got to say, this game for its age has an obscene amount of customization, a lot more than I was really expecting. From the classes to the races, this game has got you covered. From the default of man, to high elves, to hobbits, to dwarves, to furries, otherwise known as Beyond Ring, which is essentially Bear Simulator. And there's a few other sub-races, so you've got options. And the customization is robust. But let's cover the classes real quick. You've got the basic classes, the moderate classes, and the advanced classes, essentially just showing the skill ceiling of the classes you want to pick and play. Unlike most traditional MMOs, you don't get your warriors, your druids, your paladins, or things of that nature. You get burglar, guardian, captain, minstrel, and other classes of that nature. And it honestly gives Lord of the Rings Online that sweet charm that MMOs deserve. I'm not gonna lie though, burglar is single-handedly the most ass name I've ever heard for a class. It doesn't sound magical or mystical or fantastical. It sounds like I'm gonna break into your hobbit house and steal your TV. I wanted guardian because I've been a tank for about 20 years and I'm not breaking the streak here. I would have gone Beyond Ring, but I didn't want to be a furry this time around, and typically I'm a bear in every single game I play. So what is the name of our character? Ebonheart. The Great, the Pious, the Glorious, the Prosperous. Or I would have called them that, but every variation of Ebonheart was taken. Who takes Ebon Tank? So anyways, my pronouns are he, not him, because I'll never be him. But he will. So welcome Ebonhim. Now, as far as the tutorial goes, Lord of the Rings Online tutorial is drastically better than most MMOs in recent history. It's fast, it's snappy, it's very intuitive. It teaches you all the basics you need in a way that's smooth and easy to understand without holding your hand and making you feel like a child that was dropped on his head, which is something I've come to appreciate with all the games. Not all of them though, because some of these older games have tutorial equivalent to how our parents went to school, and Lord of the Rings Online does an amazing job of setting up the world, the story, and introduction. Every new quest in the introduction introduction zone furthered the storyline and taught you more basics of how to play, what to do, and how to do things. Now, the systems it taught aren't all that great, but for a game from 2007, it's acceptable. Which brings us to the story, and I'm not going to lie, I opened up my eyes to invading a jail and freeing people. First of all, why am I in a bandit jail? Second of all, is that a goddamn Nazgul in a tutorial? We go back to the beginning of the bandit jail, and it's Skyrim all over again. Goddamn it, Todd Howard, he did it again. So Strider, whose identity we will break down later, gives us a tutorial in the middle of prison by making us hit each other until we're adequately acquainted. Then I'm set free to murder bandits, and these ones are called the Black Wall. So after butchering my way through many bandits, we come back to the Nazgul. We watch him before our eyes as he stakes a claim over Umdir, cutting him with his vile weapon and cursing him, blaming him for Sauron and all evil. And then he makes my character cower and shake in fear until he leaves with the plot armor. So right off the bat, strong start to the story, entertaining and thrilling, very high stakes. And then we get sent to a place called Archet, where I have to go out of my way to do a lot of walk 5 feet to talk to another person quests. But as I quest, I realize that the plot is actually really thick and full of detail, and the game stays this way all the way throughout, not just in the tutorial. We discover more and more bandit plots until we get to Caldor Cobb, and the rat bastard is a traitor. But I can't convince the captain in charge of Archet to trust us. I'm gonna call it Archet for the rest of the series. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but Archet sounds fancy. Now we end up going throughout about a dozen more quests where it's kill 6 of these, pick 10 of these, until randomly with almost no heads up, I just get given a horse and a tutorial on how to spend real life money in the Lord of the Rings online cash shop. Now I'm not gonna look a gift horse in the mouth, but I see what you did there, LotrO. Very smart. After a bit more back and forth questing, we get a vision, people, of the darkness, of the future, by none other than Lady Galadriel, which was really cool. We get to see the Witch King. We see Karn Dum, the Witch King's seat of power. We see Gandalf the Grey about to throw hands with the Balrog. And then it turns out that we are a key figure in the future Middle-earth. That's right, Eben Him holds the key to saving Middle-earth. So then we move on and prepare for the end of the tutorial, the end of the prologue, and right here I'm gonna give praise where praise is due. The tutorial is honestly phenomenal. This was one of the best MMO tutorials I've ever got the ability to experience. It was incredibly well done. The characters, the ambiance, that atmosphere, just seeing the town of Archet go from being a beautiful little locale to being set on fire was incredibly nice. Not to say that setting a town on fire was nice, but you know, they changed the city up. It was nice atmospherically done. So as the battle to liberate Archet progressed, we finally saw Caldor Cobb again. But as Billy May would say, wait, there's more. Because the Nazgul are back. But that's not no Nazgul, it's a Kargul. Why is it red though? Brother, did you miss the memo? Or did the Nazgul not let them be black?
What?
Anyways, looking at the lore, there's an interesting reason and story behind all that, but this isn't a Lord of the Rings lore video, because this video would be 6 hours long, involve several literacy tests, require multiple linguists to decipher whatever was cooking in Tolkien's brain. So the Kargul take Amdir and they leave. The fire doing nothing to stop nobody, so why is there even fire there blocking the pathway? So we beat the daylight out of Caldor Cobb, and thus we have saved Archet, and we finished the tutorial. The town is now kind of burned, but it's saved, but rebuilding? Nah. That's for the NPCs. I am the champion of Middle-earth, and I have many more quests to partake in. So that's what I did. I delivered packages, killed more balls, and then traveled along. I entered a spider cave, murdered spiders for quite some time, killed the mama spider, and then I had to kill her 3 different times because I forgot to get the quest the first time around. Also, for a little portion of time there, I became Jesus from Temu because I was having rubber banding issues and lag, and I kept floating into the air, then floating back down, then going back and forth, and just rubber banding pretty aggressively for about 3-ish minutes. But then we were done. Archet was 100% completed quest-wise, and we moved on to Combe, an interesting named town where I got my professions and a few other quests. And this is also where the story picks up. I'm going to fast forward to the story of Combe and Shetwood. I know it's not Combe, but like we're gonna stick with the French aesthetic here just to piss off people a little bit. Because a lot of the quests here were not the greatest. The quality did go down a little bit in comparison to Archet, and they got a lot better once we got out of Combe and onto the next hub. And the next hub was amazing, was great, was beautiful. It was also where I got serenaded by the people of Middle-earth. So what was the next hub? itself. And man, what an experience that was. Seeing people in just large numbers on a random ass Monday getting together, saying, hey guys, come over to Bre. We're hanging out, we're doing things. And then you get there and there's a full-blown player orchestra happening. I got serenaded with Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up. This wasn't like any serious like major event planned on a Discord or something. Somebody typed in the general world chat, hey, there's an orchestra happening, who wants in? And then people started flocking over. It was impromptu and it made the world feel alive. It made me feel interested and excited to just play in this experience. But it made me realize that Tolkien's Middle-earth would never let me down. I'm sorry for the pun, I had to do it. But being able to walk through such a massive town was an interesting experience. It was so full and energetic that it gave me a flashback to playing World of Warcraft for the first time, where you just get to see this amazing, huge world and you're just like, this is amazing. And that's what LotrO felt like walking into Bre for the very first time. Which then brings me to the culmination of the entire first arc of the storyline. Now, I skipped the middle part of the first act, but trust me, the final is so much more entertaining that's going to be worth it to skip to that. In Bre, I'm going to start calling it normally. At the inn, there's a man called Strider. Now, we met him in the tutorial, but Strider is actually Aragorn, true king of Gondor, who was blissfully unaware that Gandalf the Grey was quite literally next door and waiting for the moment that I was actually a high enough level to waste effort on my app. So Gandalf refused to speak to me, and I quote him saying, and I'm going to read the quote directly here, I wrote it down. If you didn't have the yee-ass level, maybe you'd get some barmaids on your lap, or better yet, maybe your sweetheart will return your letters. Heartbroken and humiliated, I returned to Aragorn to continue our journey and adventure. We load into some kind of ruin, and Aragorn, Lenglin, and Thorthan and me get ready. We group up and are prepared to head out. Except Aragorn just abandons us. My brother in Christ, you're the main character. Where are you going? But he doesn't come back. He leaves me and Thorthan to save Amdir by ourselves, which we attempt to the best of our abilities. We continue through murdering a plethora of somewhat terrified bandits. But as we continue, we see Skorgrim torturing his own servant, which, to be fair, if you sign up to fight for an evil lord, you get what you deserve. Like, who thinks, oh man, Sauron's such a good guy. The pension plan here is amazing. It's Sauron. You're expendable. And then anyway, Skorgrim disappears and summons Skeletor like the He-Man villain that he is. So we defeat Skeletor and we move up. And there we see Amdir and the actual Nazgul. And to my horror, I witnessed them transform our good old boy Amdir into a Kharbul. And I scream in horror, not my boy. And then in comes Aragorn and Lenglin chasing off the Nazgul, which is rather badass if I don't say so, but also plot armor. But then I realized that I have to fight my main man Amdir, and you see, I have a problem. I thought I was a borderline unstoppable killing machine, cutting down the entirety of Middle-earth's problems one bandit at a time. So when I started fighting Amdir, I realized I did not actually have the health necessary to fight him, which leads us into the segue of Scooby-Doo in Lord of the Rings. Because after 2 minutes of me running around pillars, zigging and zagging, fighting Amdir like I was Scooby-Doo himself, I finally had enough time to pop a potion and defeat Amdir. Now, I'm not gonna lie, it was hilarious, it was exhilarating, it was actually a very enjoyable quest experience. And it was a downright hilarious encounter. But I'm gonna stop covering the story and lore here because LotrO actually has some insane questlines that are incredibly well written, and there's so much story for you to discover and explore that I wholeheartedly recommend every single person interested in MMOs or RPGs in general give Lord of the Rings Online a chance. The age and archaicness of it does not take away from how enjoyable an experience it was to actually dive into this universe and world. But it's still amazing to see all the characters, races, and story arcs and beats in high detail and writing. I'd say high quality, but it's a game from 2007, so you know, it is what it is. Now, let's discuss the leveling and how it felt. And I'm not even going to lie, the game lets you play as hard or easy as you want. You quite literally get an option and ability to make the world harder. So if you're a masochist or you're leveling your 10th character and want a challenge, the game has what you want. But I played on the default setting because I want to enjoy the world and story, and as far as that goes, it was smooth. It wasn't amazing. Despite the story being good and the quest being mostly fun and interesting, it was rather a basic MMO questing experience. The quest text is cool, the story beats are cool, but talk to Bob, kill 10 boars, collect 5 apples, bury 3 bodies. That's an actual quest, by the way. The amount of dead people I had to lay to rest was way too high. Isn't this meant to be whimsical fantasy? Nonetheless, the mobs dropped items relatively fast. There was no World of Warcraft, kill 10 bears for 10 bear asses, but you actually had to kill 120 bears for 10 bear asses. But none of that. The mobs gave ample experience as to the quest. The worlds and hubs flowed from one another very cleanly. Definitely did not level to max level. Not even close. I got to about the mid levels, about 50-ish. I've got to say one thing, and I said this at the beginning. The end game means jack diddly shit in Lord of the Rings Online. That's not to say that the end game doesn't matter. It absolutely does matter. But the world of Lord of the Rings Online is the main character. The leveling, the questing, the exploring, just living in the world is the main character for LotrO. Doing deeds, which is kind of like the achievement system, and experiencing the world itself is one of the best things that LotrO has going for it. I'm not going to say that the game world is perfect or has no flaws, but in my just about 100 hours of playing LotrO, I'd be lying if I didn't say it that I enjoyed almost every moment of it. And having talked to many people in the game world or online on Reddit or on Twitter or on Discord, I can comfortably say that a lot of people just don't care for the end game. They simply play how they want because the world is the game they signed up to play. They get to enjoy the rich tapestry and universe of Middle-earth. I don't judge them one little bit for choosing to not care about the end game and just play the game how I want. Yeah, not every quest is amazing, but the developers put an immaculate amount of attention and detail into a game world over these past 17 years, and I enjoyed every second of my adventure through Middle-earth. But talking about adventures in Middle-earth, not every adventure was a great one, which brings us to PvP. Or I would bring us to PvP if I could actually PvP. So now there is a game mode called Monster Play. I tried across 2 different weeks, and despite there being NPCs to fight in monster mode, I could not find a singular player to fight against. I logged in, logged out, logged in, hoping someone else would go into the game mode. I didn't even see a single other person playing as a monster. Like, that's how dead the PvP was in LotrO. Now, again, it could be the time I played, it could be when I tried to play, maybe it was my server, but I didn't actually get to partake in monster mode or any PvP in Lord of the Rings Online. I will say though that the customization and options look great though, giving you a plethora of classes to PvP with, if there was PvP that you could PvP in. So I'm not gonna dock or give points here. I'm going to give PvP in LotrO a NA, not available. But let's move on to the next topic, and that's combat. And I have to be honest with everybody, I can't even lie, it's ass. Lord of the Rings Online's combat is ass. But it's not ass because the game itself is particularly bad. It's ass because it's combat designed in 2007 for an MMO, and it's archaic and stiff, and even at its best, it's barely tolerable. It actually, weirdly enough, doesn't really detract from the game at all, because you're loading into a 2007 MMO, you kind of expect this. The buttons do what they say they're going to do. The abilities work how they work. There's nothing special or terrible about it. It's just MMO combat from a very old MMO. Strafe left and right, forward and backwards, auto attack, hit people, heal, defend. It's just a few steps below what's acceptable for the modern day and age. But I'm rating this game for what it is, and I'm giving combat a 5 out of 10. It's far from the best MMO combat, but it's definitely far from the best. And I will admit that if LotrO had an updated combat system, it might do really good in the modern day and age. Like if they made a new version of LotrO, updated graphics, essentially a Lord of the Rings Online Plus, it could do numbers with just how good the game world. Now, the other major problem with combat is that the game is somewhat laggy, and this could be a me problem, but I have a relatively decent PC and gigabit wired internet. And playing more recent MMOs, for example, New World Eternum, I know it's the same game re-released, or World of Warcraft The War Within, I experienced zero lag or stutter. And in LotrO, I would often stutter. Actions would register a second or two late, and there was always an element of clunkiness to the combat. But that could be in regards to the game engine itself and not the combat, but I did think it was worth mentioning. Now though, when it comes to raids and dungeons, I cannot speak for raids, but the dungeons are absolutely phenomenal. And in LotrO, they're called instances. I will say it's a little janky and difficult, and even the solo instances were a little harder than necessary, but boy are they fun. Now, I couldn't complete any of the solo instances because I'm new to the game, I didn't have all the skills necessary, but doing Helm's Pike, retaking Pelagia, and the defense of Minas Tirith were eye-opening. Sitting there on those walls, and looking at the hordes of monsters down the walls, trying to come back, like reliving those experiences, it's it's a phenomenal experience. Defeating wave after wave of enemies, firing trebuchets, and just experiencing these battles, and somehow they were both high quality and low quality at the same time. There are so many instances that tell and allow you to experience stories in the massive and expansive lore of Middle-earth. But I need everybody to have tempered expectations. It's clunky. The game was made 17 years ago. But there is no better game except perhaps Shadows of Mordor and that series that allows you to experience Lord of the Rings Online for what it is. The amazing stories of Middle-earth. Now, we're going to jump into the cons, and I'd be remiss not to mention the cons. Now, there aren't a lot of them, surprisingly enough, but they should still be mentioned. So as I said earlier, this entire playthrough was completely free to play. Now, I know you can simply pay $15 a month and become a VIP and subscribe to the game, which gives you access to so many things. It unlocks all the content. Elder Scrolls Online and a few other MMOs do this as well. And I'm being honest, if you do plan on actually playing LotrO, please subscribe and then play on the brand new Legendary servers because it's so much more worth it. Because subscribing solves pretty much all the issues that I had with the game. But let's discuss the robust and in-depth cash shop. Like I said, a lot of MMOs and honestly just a lot of gaming in general, cash stores are just the default at this point in time. I can't really go into too much detail on this because it wouldn't be fair. But do keep in mind, just be VIP and it solves all those issues. And if you're not VIP, you're going to have a very frustrating experience as a new player because a lot of quests are logged away, like you have to pay for them. You have 3 bag slots when you're not subscribed and a few other things of that nature that just take away from the game. But if you can get over that and just enjoy the game, considering that it's free for the most part, you'll have an amazing time. Now, the other issue, and I mentioned this before, is the rubber banding, the lag, and especially the game being outdated at this point in time. But it's still a relatively frustrating new play experience to just have mobs stop, despawn, or have the whole world freeze up on you, and then your characters are levitating like Temu Jesus. I mentioned it earlier, but there's something called Legendary servers, which is essentially what classic World of Warcraft is. They're redoing the game, better server infrastructure, 64-bit. It's just level 50. Like, they've made the game feel smoother, play smooth, and just is a better experience. And that's where I assume a lot of the player base went to. So when I was playing free to play, I think a lot of people were just on the Legendary servers, loving and reliving the game world to the highest quality and degree. So despite these minor cons, they do not take away from the experience that Lord of the Rings Online was as a whole. And I've got to say that Lord of the Rings Online is probably one of the best MMOs when it comes to the world you get to experience. Sure, some MMOs have better combat, some MMOs have better dungeons and raiding, some MMOs have better role-playing experiences. But very few MMOs let you experience the world you're invested in as good as Lord of the Rings Online does. And it's phenomenal. I cannot knock them on that. The devs have done an amazing job keeping the world alive and updated and continuously adding more zones and more locations and fleshing out the entirety of Middle-earth. I genuinely hope more people give the game a try because despite its issues, it's an MMO that definitely made a mark on the world and it's definitely an MMO worth playing and trying out. And hey, perhaps the Lord of the Rings MMO from Amazon Game Studios will actually be an amazing experience and give us the Lord of the Rings Online 2 that we've all been waiting for a very, very long time. If they could make an amazing Lord of the Rings MMO 17 years ago, they can definitely do it again. So thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive essay, please consider subscribing and liking the video. There's going to be more MMO videos coming out in the future. If you hated this video, understandable. Dislike and subscribe so you can dislike every MMO essay I do going forward as well. So thank you all for watching. Ebenhard out. Peace.